During the onset of World War II, the British Purchasing Commission approached North American Aviation with an offer. They wanted North American to produce the Curtiss P-40 under license for the Royal Air Force. However, North American wasn't so keen on producing another company's aging design. So instead, they proposed to design and produce a more modern fighter. After the contract was signed, Edgar Schmude and his design team came up with the NA-73X. The prototype was rolled out on the 9th of September 1940, a mere 102 days after the contract had been signed. A few weeks later, on the 26th of October, the Mustang would take its maiden flight. It wasn't so straightforward though. The chief engineer at North American, John Atwood, spent copious amounts of time discussing the specifications for this proposed fighter with British engineers at the British Purchasing Commission's offices in New York. The Brits were concerned that North American had never designed a fighter before, so they insisted that North American study the Curtiss XP-46 schematics and the wind tunnel data from the P-40. After purchasing the schematics and data from Curtiss, North American would then confirm the purchase with the British Purchasing Commission. After studying the information, North American would present their design drawings to the British Purchasing Commission. North American Aviation would succeed with their conceptual plans, when on the 4th of May 1940, the Mustang project would begin. With the British ordering 320 Mustangs by the end of the month, the British would require an armament of 4 303 machine guns, same as on the P-40, a unit cost of no more than $40,000, and production aircraft deliveries must begin by January 1941. The Mustang prototype NA-73X would follow the best conventional practices of the era, with it being designed for ease of manufacturing. The Mustang included new features such as laminar flow airfoils. This new wing design would produce lower drag at high speeds, making the Mustang's new wings superior to other aircraft. The other main feature was the new cooling arrangement positioned in the rear of the aircraft. This positioning greatly reduced drag on the wings. The cooling system would also take advantage of the Meredith effect, similar to the Spitfire, which added a small amount of jet thrust to the Mustang. The Mustang was also one of the first aircraft to have a lofted fuselage using conic sections, resulting in smooth, low-drag surfaces. The NA-73X would take flight on the 26th of October 1940, with test pilot Vance Breeze at the controls. The prototype ended up handling well. It was also able to carry an impressive fuel load too. The Mustang's semi-monocoque construction would be entirely made of aluminum in order to save weight. The Mustang would come with the 4 303s desired by the British, but now had an additional 2 Browning 50 caliber machine guns mounted under the engine. While the United States Army Air Corps could have blocked sales it considered to be a detriment to the United States' national interests, they deemed the Mustang to be a special case because it was designed at the behest of the British. In September 1940, a further 300 P-51s were ordered by the British. The first P-51s would come equipped with an Allison engine, which had a single-stage supercharger. When the Mustang would fly over 15,000 feet, the single-stage supercharger would cause the power to drop off rapidly, making the engine unsuitable for use at altitude where combat over Europe was happening. Allison would attempt to develop a new engine, but because they were underfunded, they wouldn't produce a much better option. But nonetheless, Allison released the V1710-45, which now featured a variable speed supercharger. The engine produced 1,150 horsepower at an altitude of 22,400 feet. North American Aviation would test the possibility of using this new engine. However, its excessive length would require extensive airframe modifications and cause production delays for the Mustang. Later in May 1942, following the RAF's positive flight performance of the Mustang, under the altitude of 15,000 feet, Ronald Harker, who was a Rolls-Royce test pilot, would suggest fitting a Merlin 61 to the Mustang, the same engine used in the Spitfire Mark IX. The Merlin engine was able to produce more horsepower than the Allison counterpart, increasing the Mustang's top speed at 15,000 feet from 390 miles per hour to 440 miles per hour. During these tests in England, across the Atlantic, the possibility of combining the P-51 airframe with the US license-built Packard version of the Merlin engine was also being explored. In July 1942, a contract was signed in order to produce 2 prototypes, initially being designated XP-78, but soon renamed the XP-51B. With the Packard V1650-3, North American estimated a top speed of 445 miles per hour at 28,000 feet, and a service ceiling of 42,000 feet. The first flight of the XP-51B took place in November 1942. Before the prototype even took flight 3 months earlier, the United States Army Air Force was so interested in the idea they had an initial contract placed for 400 aircraft. The engine conversion ultimately led to the P-51B, which started production at North American's Inglewood plant in June 1943. These new Mustangs would start being delivered first to the 8th and 9th Air Forces in the winter of 1943-1944. Some other changes would ensue as a result of the new engine. The new Merlin weighed 350 pounds more than the Allison engine. Thus, the wings had to be moved slightly forward to correct the aircraft's center of gravity. A new fuel tank was also added in the fuselage behind the pilot, adding an additional 85 gallons of fuel capacity. After World War II, P-51s were sold as surplus. They often sold for as little as $1,500. More than 15,000 were produced throughout the war. Today, only around 150 are airworthy, with many other examples being under restoration or on display in museums. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Make sure to hit the bell icon to be informed when I release new videos.